All right, my people, wake up humans. Welcome to another podcast. And listen, I've been sitting back waiting to have this dude on here. I kind of in my mind said, let him sweat it out and earn it a little bit. And this son of a bitch has certainly earned it. I'm sure he'll tell you I've busted his balls probably more than most people that I know, but it's because I love him and it worked. The son of a bitch is crushing it. Let's hear it for Dr. Brian Moriarty from Stuart, Florida. How are you, pal?
Oh, I'm doing great, Steve. Thanks so much for having me on, and thanks for the long wait to get on here.
You look so official with your blazer and your lapels. And how long did it take you to pick out that outfit?
Well, this jacket I actually got from Italy from my recent vacation there, so I figured I'd give it its first wear on your exciting podcast, Steve. So it's just getting a christening.
So you just, man, how freaking cool is that to say, I just came from Italy and I bought myself a tailored jacket?
Usually when I used to take vacations, it was the econo vacation. And not that those vacations weren't great by any means, but it was kind of nice to have a family vacation where we could buy souvenirs, we could buy nice things. And that's where a lot of my story comes back into, is like how I got to that point of where we're, traveling the world and doing a lot of the things that we've always wanted to do.
Well, let's go there, man. So you basically went from near bankruptcy to millionaire mind, man. And listen, I think chiropractors need to have this conversation where it's okay to be like, I'm a freaking millionaire and I'm killing it, because I know you're not a dickhead. I know you give a lot, you tithe a lot, you serve a lot, you help a lot of people, but you also deserve to fly to Italy and buy your family gifts and celebrate life, because this principle is so freaking big that when you use it properly and you take care of people and people are paying for services, we're abundant. There's nothing wrong with that, having that conversation. Give, love, serve doesn't mean be broke and give shit away for free. So tell us where you're at, brother, and what happened.
That's a good point. Is it all comes back to the lasting purpose principle. When I started out getting out of school, I was working as an associate. I was doing well. I was working for some great family that I was very close to and still am. And but when you look at your life, I always think of that Dick Santo talk where he says, look at your life one direction and then look at how it could be in another direction. And I knew I needed to go on my own, but to be honest, I was just too weak to branch out on my own. It's a tough move to leave a cushy job with people you love and everything's ho hum. And that's where I found Dynamic Essentials, where I went to DE, and it literally ripped open the husk inside of me and just made me want more, wanting to do more. And that's where I changed complete direction in my life. And I moved and opened up a practice. I bought a struggling practice down here in Stuart, Florida, and the practice was just really struggling. And I struggled. I mean, people think like they see where I'm at now and they're like, oh, it was so easy. It was not easy. Okay. That first year, me and my wife would cry each other to sleep on each other's pillows, second guessing, like, why would we leave a six-figure job to go down here and do this and struggle and burn through all our savings to not make ends meet? And then literally I kept going to DE and the light bulb just kept going off and off, because people think like they go to DE once and like their life doesn't change. It's like, oh, well, that was a failure. It's not. You have to keep going over and over until it's tattooed onto your soul. And once that is, your life will change dramatically. I've been going now for almost a decade. And it took all those times. And I still, every single time, learn something new at DE, just from a different part of life, connecting with like-minded individuals. But it takes that time and repetition. Sound familiar? Sounds like a chiropractic adjustment. Time and repetition. Going to DE is time and repetition, getting the right habits. And once you see that vision, it's literally so easy to just follow that path. And nothing will shake you from that path that you're supposed to be on in life And that's what led me down here and to all my success here in Stuart, Florida.
Wow, that's awesome, bro. So you and this is what people need to understand. There was an individual that invited you to DE, and you had a and I'll let you tell them who it is, and you had a choice to say yes or no. What would have happened if you said no? And what made you say yes?
You know, there's a very special individual in my life named Dr. Dean Satilli. And I knew him when I was a kid. Our fathers were both friends growing. They're both chiropractors, both friends. And I knew him as, you know, as a kid. And it's funny how God puts people back into your life at just the right time when you need them. And I happened to hear on a Tuesday night call, people always say, oh, the Tuesday night calls, you know, I catch them when I can. This was a Tuesday night call where he spoke to me and said, listen, something's got to change. And I reached out to him, and we had call after call after call. And he finally just said to me, listen, you have to get to DE. This is the action step. And literally, it's like when you're on the edge of a ledge and you're looking over the edge and you're like, should I jump off or should I just play it safe up here? And I could have just played it safe and just lived a very ho-hum life, which was fine. But now my life is absolutely extraordinary because I did take that jump and go off that ledge. And when I got to DE, everybody thinks that like, oh, it's a clique. And if you're not part of the clique, who cares? I didn't know anybody. And Dean didn't even make it because his mother-in-law passed away. So he didn't even come. So there was me knowing absolutely no one and just meeting people and hugging and sharing the love. And honestly, I thought they were kind of a little weird when I got there. Like, I don't even know these guys and they're hugging and, you know, but that's how welcoming a place like DE is. DE takes in anybody, no matter what your stance is in life, no matter if you're a mixer or a straight or a success or a failure, it is good for anyone. And you have to decide if you want to be there for that reason.
Right. Right. And thank God you walked in there, man, because it was definitely a process. And when did you wake up and realize that the seal was broken and you were now succeeding? Where did you have that pivotal moment where it was like, all right, you and your wife, you can make love and not cry yourself to sleep and realize, all right, we're in a better place?
Yeah, you know, even from that first DE, I definitely felt like that things were happening. But you know, it takes a lot of action steps because people come to DE and they get rah-rah and they get all excited, but then they go home and they don't do shit. You know,
Right.
no offense, but you know, that's where it just kind of took like coming back to the next one and doing a few more things, coming back to the next one. That first year in practice, finally we get over the hump and we took over a practice that was seeing about 70 patients a week. And we actually had that go down the first year. I mean, we were 60, then we were 50 a week. And I'm like, what the hell did I do? And then it starts to creep up to 60, to 70, to 80 a week, to 100 a week, to 200 a week. And now it's 8.5 years later, and we're seeing about 1,000 a week. We have 5 chiropractors who work in this office, 5 staff, and it's one of the largest practices here on the East Coast of Florida.
Awesome. Awesome. So now how do you share these principles with your docs in the office? Because to manage 5 doctors, man, is I've been there, done that. That's quite a task, but it's also the intention behind it. And you and I have spoken about this is to free you up so you can be there with your kids and your wife and not burn yourself out. Because I know a lot of guys, you know, that build these big volume practices and they don't sustain their family. And knowing you personally, share with these young docs how important it is to sustain family.
You know, I always there's a lot of different models in chiropractic. Like some people bring in a lot of associates and they don't want to do shit. I personally don't agree with that model. I want to be there in the trenches, seeing patients. I love what I do. I love being a principal chiropractor. So I don't want to do that model. But I also don't want to be a slave to my practice either. I want to bring in other people that can help my team so that I can do a lot of the management of the office, that I can be in the trenches with them. Okay. So they don't feel like, oh, you know, why is this guy doing nothing and I'm doing all the work? I'm with them in the trenches alongside with them, shoulder to shoulder. And then it frees all of us up because I take vacations, like I said, to Italy, but so do my associates. One of them was gone last weekend and one of them is gone for Christmas. We take turns. And when you have a great team, you can take turns and like, Hey, we'll cover you. You go on vacation. Hey, we'll cover you. So you want to build a great team so that
Yeah.
everyone can share in those successes and have that extra family time, because you don't want to lose sight of the family time. I have 2 small children, and I don't want to miss them grow up. I know you have 5 wonderful kids, Stephen. You don't want to miss a football game or a soccer game or anything
Yeah.
that you can't get back from those kids.
And I think that's what these young docs need to realize. When we took over DE, it was uh how do we manage success, family, rest, friendships. Like right now our crew's in the middle of planning like a golf outing, getaway weekend. I mean, in the middle of COVID, a bunch of us went away and we played freaking tennis together, and it was just goofy. But I think in the middle of the stress that was going on in the world, we had each other to connect with. That you hear the guys talk about it, it helped in monumental ways.
And that's one of the things with the pandemic, is that it made people so feel alone. I mean, they couldn't go near anyone. They couldn't touch anyone. If they went out, they had to cover up or have a shot. And, maybe that was part of the design of it, was to break people down. But that's why mental health is at like record proportions of problems right now, is because you told people they can't go near anybody. And now they're like, oh yeah, now you can go back to anybody. And maybe people just don't want to go back near anybody. Maybe they just got used to that lifestyle and they want to live through Zoom like we have on this Zoom call here. Maybe they don't want to go back to being in person. Maybe they work from home permanently now. And that's where, when I look at like Zoom calls versus in-person meetings, we have these DE meetings 4 times a year. There is no substitute for being in person, hugging, loving on a person. You cannot get that through a live stream, not even close. You have to be there and share your heart with people. Feel the heart of someone in the same room as them. When you hug them, the connection you get with them.
Yeah, I was in a weird spot last DE myself, and I shared this on a previous podcast, and I was able to stand in the hallway, have 3 pivotal conversations face to face with people. And 2 of them happened organically. They just looked at me and said, "You okay?" And I'm like, "No, not really." And we stood there and talked for 20 minutes. And it was I always talk about that 4-degree shift. I was able to shift back to my center and pull my shit together, because if I kept heading off track and I didn't have the right people around me, that it was like perfect timing. And that would not have happened on a Zoom meeting. You're not having those relationships. These are quiet people that I was talking to that are powerhouses that I have a relationship with, that they feel your energy, and it was able to have that conversation. And I imagine a lot of your growth happened leaning against the wall in the back at lunchtime, in the hallway, little conversations that just got struck up at times that you couldn't plan, right?
Oh, exactly. DE is great because you listen to the speakers there, but it's the conversations in the hallway. It's the connecting, it's the masterminding with people, like a guy like Dan too. I'm the FCS president. He's the GCC president. We're at a similar spot in life with our families, with our practices. So like someone like that, like I can connect with and share a lot of different ideas with. And that's what makes the experience. It's you want to be in there and taking notes in the back and listening, but you also need to have those connections with people, and people you don't even know. Like maybe you've never met them before. I have people that just come up to me and be like, "Hey man, like I heard your great talk. Like I want to hear a little bit more about that. Like let's talk, let's wrap." I'm always doing calls in between DEs with young docs, trying to show them the way of like, hey, this is what I did. Like, I'm not a guru. I don't get paid to coach or anything like that. But like, here's me. If this helps you in some way, please like tap into it. I'm happy to help. And that's what people don't get about DE, is like, it's a love group, man. We are trying to all love on each other, help each other so we can all be successful.
And it's funny looking at you, and I made fun of you with the lapel things, but it brings me to a point. It's like, we run around DE, we could be just chilling, laughing, goofing, whatever, but our guys are out there working. It's a lot of us are rolling deep with the ICA, our state associations. Like you said, Dan too is now the new president of the GCC. Brian Lieberman is the past president. Eddie Martinez, the FCS past president. Now you're the new president. I think people need to understand, we're not just showing up to practice adjusting people. We're working on a deeper level. Why do you think we do that?
It's very easy to just stay in the four walls of your practice, or even in the four walls of DE. But there is an assault on chiropractic that a lot of us in DE, and a lot of us, principal, even outside of a DE, have decided it's time to stand up. It's time to stand up for principal chiropractic. It's time to fight back against forces like the CCE that has this monopoly over accrediting, and the FCS is going to be in Tallahassee with a bill to combat that this year. It's not a practice builder to get out there and serve chiropractic. It's a time sucker. That means that you're going to have less time with family, less time for vacations. But we do it because this profession has blessed us in such a way that we need to give back. Because if we aren't giving back, what's going to be the state of this profession in 10 years or 20 years? Or, I think about my kids, like, I want them to be chiropractors when they grow up. What if they become metapractors and I didn't do anything to stop it? Like, what a horrible way to pay that forward.
And we get a bad rap sometimes from some of these people because they're like, oh, you're the DE guys. Like, you've heard that. And it's because if there's someone's going to step up in the room and say no, and then create an argument and defend principal chiropractic, it's been us, and I've seen people in the past that get tired and they back out and they're like, well, I'm not getting involved anymore. Well, now you don't have a voice in there anymore.
Yeah, I like to use the word rebel to describe our DE crew. We're fanatical. We are zealous. I know you've used that word on your podcast before, but we're excited about chiropractic, and we're not just going to sit back and just let them run us over and just change the way it is. We're going to protect our state associations. We're going to protect the ICA. We're going to protect DE, and we're always going to be the loudest voice in the room. We may not be the most civil. We could probably use a little bit of polishing. We know that, but we're going to get our point across, and they're going to hear from us. And that's why some people probably are a little bit threatened by us. Like, oh, we need to block those guys.
Yeah. So what are you perceiving? Like, like what people need to understand is behind the scenes what other people are trying to manipulate and do to us. How could you explain that to these guys that are sitting on the fence? Because I know one of the things is I've seen people, they even let their ICA membership lapse because they're like, well, nothing's happening. Things are happening, not where we want to really see them happy yet, but they will. And while we're sticking it out, and what's the other side? What are they trying to do? Which is why we need people involved, even if it's just being a member or becoming a rep and just sticking it out. Otherwise, what's going to happen?
The thing with a lot of these organizations is you got to show up big to be a part of it. If you're not a member, you can't speak on anything.
Right.
I mean, you can knock it from afar, but it's not going to do any good. And I always like to use the quote, you can't moan and lead at the same time. So don't just sit on the sidelines and moan about things. Get involved and lead the discussion. I became I was an RA alternate for years, okay, just paying my dues. Then I became an RA, then I became on the board. Now I'm the secretary of the ICA.
Yep.
And you're the chair of the RAs. We have many board members that are involved with the ICA. Yeah, it's not like you're going to see results in like a week, okay, just throwing that out there.
Right.
It takes time and repetition. Kind of the theme of this podcast, I think, is time and repetition, because this is like a huge plan that we have to get involved, and it takes people getting involved, showing up, becoming RAs, voting and things. And if people are just on the sidelines pissing and moaning, that's not going to be productive.
Right.
If you want to change the organization, which we do, we want to make it great again.
Right. And if and I think the FCS is a great role model for state organizations on how to do it right. What do you think the FCS does right, and how are you implementing?
The FCS, we just had a board retreat with a facilitator, and we got everybody together and we spent a weekend together with families. I wanted everybody to bring their kids. I wanted it to be a really special time. And we just stripped out, like, why are we the FCS? Like, what is it that people love? And it's that we stand for principle, and we are your friends in the room that are always going to welcome you and treat you like family. So like, everybody needs CEs. So you can just go pay, whoever, Joe Blow, who's probably supporting the destruction of chiropractic, or you could give your CE money that you're going to need to spend in some way to a principled organization, an organization that's going to be on the front line in Tallahassee. combating all these bills for injectables, for drug prescription rights, putting forward bills that are going to be pro-chiropractic bills. We have gotten to know so many legislators in the last several years, reps, state senators, up even to the governor's level. We have got to just continue this mission forward in Florida. And we like to use this as a template and for other organizations, because a lot of states have principled organizations or they don't. And if you don't have one, then why are you not starting one? Like if you're like, oh, there's one state association, it sucks, then start one. I mean, it's not that hard. I'll give you our governing documents. You can copy them word for word and add your state name in there, start a principled group and start an uprising. Because if you're just going to sit there and just do nothing and you have no state association, then what power do you have? You're going to get run over in your state capital.
Yeah. And I think that's what people need to realize is when you say about starting an uprising is because if we don't rise up, someone else will. And it's going to be the people telling us we can't adjust kids. You're going to be doing manipulations and you can't have family care. And it's just taking us in a whole direction where it's merging with the ACA and their mindsets, which is not what we're all about. It's not our lifestyle.
Yeah. Have you seen what's going on in Canada recently, Steve? I was on a call last night and they are actually diagnosing people who have vaccine hesitancy with a mental disorder. So if you are vaccine hesitant and you want to ask a question, the doctor can diagnose you with a mental disorder, a mental problem, okay, because you feel that way. They want to get every physician of any kind, including chiropractors, to have a vaccine. And they don't want anybody taking x-rays. They don't want anybody taking care of kids. Like, this is the blueprint that's coming to the US. I don't know why people aren't standing up more for Canada. They're in the war zone right now. And to think, oh, it's Canada, it's not going to come here. Yeah, this is the next step. Okay.
Well, Brian, people don't know about it.
Right.
That's who's putting it out there, the rally cry to say, let's get behind these other countries. And we've seen that with the ICA. You had reps from Canada that would sit on the call and they hear us just talking about the US and fighting among each other. And they're like, guys, there's a whole world out there. We need to become more international, get more involved internationally and promote increasing membership, getting into legislation, bringing awareness and fighting these fights on a higher level.
Yeah, absolutely. And that would be a great platform for the ICA as an international chiropractic association.
Yeah.
And we have a board meeting coming up that we should talk about this. And with other organizations, like you don't have to be like in a Canadian organization to say that just something isn't right in the world. Okay.
Or to write a check for them to help them fight. I mean, that's
exactly that. I mean, that's the two ways to stand up and be accounted for is to write a check or to be on the front lines. And you and me and a lot of other people do both. We do them, but a lot of people do neither. And that's where it's like, well, you going to help out here or something? If everybody did something, I mean, we'd have a much bigger uprising.
Oh, forget about it. It's going to happen. I mean, we got to act as if. That's what Dr. Sid always taught us. And it starts with creating strong, principled, successful chiropractors that are taking care of a lot of people making money so that when you turn around and say, hey, I need a $10,000 check, it's like, where do I mail it to? If it aligns with our cause, we have to get on board with that to literally take over. Like, it's time for us to take over and get this principle out there. And we got a lot of young, guys like you coming up through the ranks. And, I just had 2 young kids in here that are coming in as interns at 26, 27 years old. I'm like, shit, I'm almost double your age, for crying out loud. But we're going to teach you how to do this thing to carry this torch forward.
Yeah. I just want people to get involved in a lot of these organizations. Like, I understand that the history of maybe the FCS history isn't the greatest that you probably haven't heard, or maybe the ICA history isn't great and how dare they do this. But it's like, I remember reading a book called The Backpack, okay, about carrying these burdens with you. Have you ever heard of that book, Steve?
Great book, bestseller.
Right. And you have to at some point unpack that backpack and say, okay, you know what? The ICA is doing a lot of great things right now. We've got a lot of representation on the board. It's a changed organization. There is a voice. There is people that are going to listen. We have a great president in Dr. Selena Sigafus-Jackson, and you will be heard. Okay. This is not, 20 years ago or whatever problem you have. So take those rocks out of your friggin' backpack and get involved and just become a member. Okay. Be a member of the ICA. That's a way to be a part of it.
Well, sometimes people's emotions roll so deep, they just need a simple excuse to be able to walk away and not take responsibility and say no. So to be able to say, well, the ICA does this, it's fine. Become a member, and now you have a voice. Because if you're not a member, your bitching and moaning is bitching and moaning. It's like it's falling on deaf ears. Now you're a member, right? And now you move into the ranks of becoming, an RA and a rep. And now you get a deeper voice where your ideas could be strongly heard and then actually make a movement for change instead of just walking away from it. I mean, it's like being married and you have a rough day with your spouse and you're like, well, I'm out of here. I'm getting divorced. Well, now what? Now you miss the glory of making love, having 5 kids, raising awesome kids, going through life experiences. That's how we got to look at all these organizations. And it starts with you joining your state organization, joining the ICA, getting involved in the state organization, getting involved with the ICA. Now we can have an educated conversation and talk change or improvement, because sometimes you don't need change. Maybe there's just an improvement.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a lot of improvement that has to be done in all of these organizations, and they're never going to be perfect.
Right.
Just don't think that like everything's going to be perfect and hunky dory and you're going to agree with every single thing, because trust me, that's not going to happen in any group you're in.
Right.
When you have diverse people coming together, you're going to have opposition.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of positive changes coming out of all these organizations. So it's inspiring.
And let me tell you, I've been around the ICA for a while, and that last in-face meeting we all had together, we got a heck of a board right now. I mean, it's there's some new members on the board that are really open ears. Let me just say that, like they're very calm, cool, collected intellectuals, but they have big hearts, and like Beth Clay really gave that vision of, what'd she say, like 84,000 members as a goal. I remember just thinking, was it 84,000 or is that me just
something like that?
Yeah. It was something that people are like, wow, I'm like, that needs to be the primary focus. Imagine that. Imagine 84,000 members pushing towards the principal, writing checks to get things done. What does that look like? And when she dropped that in the room, I'm like, that's it right there, man. That's the conversation. That's like, start there. And all else is going to follow with this thing, man, because you create a revolution of the principled message going around the world from the International Chiropractic Association. What does that look like 5 years from now? That would be massive.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And we've sat down with a lot of these people, and there's a lot of good people on that board. There's a lot of people there that have no agenda except they love chiropractic. And it's been great to sit down eye to eye, shoulder to shoulder with them and just hash things out. And to see that we're actually very similar to them. And, this is the message in chiropractic that always comes back to, is that like anybody who's really a success in chiropractic probably has been to DE or has some kind of root at DE. Like that's where they got their start. That's where they got their awakening. And even if they don't come now, like it all kind of traces back to that. Like I remember Brad Glowacki talking about like listening to a tape from DE that, and it's led him to some, ultra success as well.
Well, success principles, it's a universal law. It's you listen to all the gurus from like Dale Carnegie to Tony Robbins to Brian Moriarty. They're all saying the same thing in their own language and their own tone, but it's the same principles. And that's how you've been able to rise up from struggling to thriving. From wearing a Walmart jacket to wearing a jacket from Italy, that you're able to take your whole family and live abundantly, is because you decided to seek help, listen, take action, and show up. That's one thing I give you credit, man. And it's just, you just show up. Like, it's just like, where's Waldo? There, it's like, you always look, there's Brian, there's Brett, that son of a bitch. It's just, he just keeps coming and he's coming and he keeps asking questions and and then it was like, and then you wake up a couple of years later, son of a bitch did it. There was nothing more beautiful than when you bought that new house on the water and seeing your first sunset. And I think some people can look at that and be like, well, this is big ego. No, that's a huge freaking victory of hard work, persistency, time, repetition, and success leaves clues. You could have the same stuff if you follow through.
and that's a big thing about showing up is in the decade that I've been coming back to DE, I've missed one decade, one DE when I was actually in someone's wedding, and you still gave me shit about it, Steve. Which,
Yeah.
but it's like you're scared to miss because you don't want to miss what happens,
Right.
and it becomes infectious. And when I look at my calendar for the year, I put everything aside and just say DE here, DE
Yeah.
here, DE here. And those are the times that I know I'm just not going to miss no matter what happens. I am going to be there, God willing, and it just becomes part of your lifestyle. And
Yeah.
you start to kind of count down, like we have DE coming up in about a month here, and you start to get like that itch inside you that it's like, oh, it's coming, baby. It's time to kind of
I
get
can't
ramped
wait.
up. And it's like, then you get to that final week and we do the Tuesday call, and it's just like, it gets the juices flowing. And what people don't get is like, that's how you keep that fire going in your practice. Like,
Yeah.
if you don't have DE in your life, like, I don't know how you keep going through practice. Like, you must just be getting beaten up and run over every single day. And it gets to the point where it's like, where is your intensity coming from? Like, where's your fire? Like, I hope you got somewhere else that you can get your fire from, because that's where I get mine from. And it's because of the great friends I've made at DE that, can carry you through those intervals in between. Great friends are the best gift that you can give yourself. All these meaningful relationships, they take time and they take attention. Okay. But if you work at them and you work at them through DE and building these relationships, these are going to be lifelong friends. Like, I didn't know anybody at DE, but like I said, 10 years ago. And I feel like, you and Eddie and a lot of our close friends, Brian, are going to be friends forever and have these lifelong relationships. And just to put a final point on that, like, yes, my life has improved a lot practice wise and financial wise, but like, my friendships have grown so much, okay, with people I didn't know, or maybe people I saw from afar and looked up to. But
Yeah.
that's the greatest gift you can get, is great friends in your life, people you can vacation with. You can just call on the phone and be like, hey, Steve, what do I do about this? I got this problem in my office.
Yeah.
It's so valuable.
And the beauty of it is, is watching our spouses together. That to me is really cool. Like, seeing your wife come into the mix was just a beautiful thing, to get around Otticelli and Rachel Lieberman and Tammy, and just watch their relationships build up. And I'd like to see Dean and Tony Ann around more. We did that trip to Mexico with them, which was just freaking awesome. It's like, now that their kids are getting a little older, they could probably break away more. And seeing our spouses who are DE wives, on purpose, like-minded, that we wouldn't be who we are if they weren't on board with us.
Right. And that brings me to this point. The way that you do anything is the way that you should do everything.
Mm-hmm.
And we have these chiropractors that you see on the stage and you see how excited they are, and they have kick-ass practices, but they have kick-ass lives too. They have great spouses. They have great kids. They live a great life. And that's why it's the way that you do anything is the way you should do everything, big,
Yeah.
small, no matter where. Do it with that standard of excellence, just like it's the most important day of your life or the least important day of your life.
Yeah. Yeah. And let me tell you something. This is how it's, because you're coming to Kane's football game, I heard, right?
Absolutely. I got 4 tickets, baby.
I mean, this is so Kane's football team made the state championships in Florida, and I got DE guys want to go to it. And I'm like, you know what? That's like, I get goosebumps. Like, I might be a little bit choked up right now, but it's this extended family that I could tell Kane, you got a lot of people showing up to come support you. It's really neat to be able to raise your family in that environment, knowing that the support rolls deep. And that was built by what Dr. Sid created with DE through the hard times and the great times. And there's more great times because of the support. But I really appreciate you doing that, man. And Jill Cherry has made up shirts for us that we're going to wear.
Yeah.
And, Kane doesn't show a lot of emotion, but he's pretty excited. He actually smiled when I told him, and he was like, well, who's coming? I told him, and Dean's coming, because he's going to be speaking at the FCS thing. And we actually will probably bring a dress of clothes to maybe end up at the FCS party. It's like,
nice.
I said, I don't know, Tammy, they win this thing, we might be going out with the team and celebrating, but they're playing against a really badass team, and they're not expected to win, but I got faith that they got amazing coaching and amazing athletes. It would be a huge victory if they win. So I appreciate that support. And guys, that's what DE and these principles, like we go back to how this conversation started with Brian and I, him not showing up and being persistent, because he's one of the most persistent people I have ever met. And I said that from a place where I would bust his balls more than anybody, and he took it on the chin. He would call me up, dude, are you upset with me? Are you? No, man. It's just I just want you to succeed and do well. And I know you go hang out with Lieberman and give you the hug. It was like it just worked, and now you're freaking seeing 1,000 a week, 5 associates, traveling the world. I love you, bro. Great job. So how would you leave our audience? Any innate talking to you with any message that you would drop in on these guys?
Wow, it's hard to find a way to leave this. It's been a great time chatting with you, Steve, and it's an honor to go to your son's football game. Let me just say, when you put out the link for that, it took probably about 4.8 seconds for us to get on the site and buy our tickets, and other people as well. But you want to share those memories with the people you love, and that's a huge stage for your son. And I'm hope and pray that he does well. Win, lose, it's an incredible accomplishment there. But I would say as a final word, there's always a trade-off to things. Like you have to make big leaps to get big rewards, and it's fine playing it safe. But at the end of your life, I want to look back and just say, like, look at this incredible life I had. And don't think that just at 44 years of age that I'm done, Steve. There's still some big moves coming. But it's been an incredible life. It's been a lot of struggle, but I'm definitely seeing the fruits of it. And I have you to thank for it, and Brian Lieberman and Eddie Martinez and everyone at DE to thank for it. So I will be eternally grateful to you guys, and to DE and Dr. Sid and Dee and the rest, because you guys changed my life, and you've given me a life that I've literally only dreamed about. I love my God better than I ever have. I love my kids. I love my wife. We're 12 years married, and we're better than we ever have been.
Awesome.
And I love chiropractic more than I ever have. I love coming into this office. As soon as I'm done on this, I'm gonna take off this fancy jacket and start adjusting people. But I love life, and that's what DE has done for me. So I'm eternally grateful to you, Steve, and everyone. So thank you so much
Awesome.
for having me, and God bless.
And bro, we're all looking forward to the continued journey, watching you grow and watching you make shit happen. So God bless you, brother, man. Congratulations. Don't get comfortable. Keep it up.
Thank you, brother. Great talking with you.
Ditto, my man.